For over 80 years, a powerful and destructive lie has echoed through history. It's a lie that pins the deaths of 2,403 Americans on one man. The accusation is that President Franklin D. Roosevelt knew the attack on Pearl Harbor was coming and simply let it happen. This conspiracy has captivated millions, spawning countless books and documentaries. But what if the truth is more complex and in some ways even more unsettling? Today, we're cutting through the noise and looking at the declassified evidence to expose the truth behind the highest-ranking lie of World War II. At the heart of it all is something called the backdoor to war theory. It alleges that FDR, facing a public dead set against joining World War II, provoked Japan into attacking just to drag America into the fight. People who believe this point to three main clues. First, the claim that FDR had specific intelligence warning of the attack on Pearl Harbor and ignored it. Second, that America's oil embargo on Japan was a deliberate provocation. And third, the supposed smoking gun for many. Why were the Navy's most valuable ships, the aircraft carriers, nowhere near Pearl Harbor on December 7th?
It's a powerful story because it paints a picture of ultimate betrayal. But when you actually stack it up against the mountain of declassified records and historical analysis, the conspiracy just falls apart. Most historians have overwhelmingly rejected these claims, finding no credible evidence to back them up. So, the big question, did Roosevelt know? The short answer is no. There is not a single declassified document or credible witness that proves FDR had advanced knowledge of the attack on Pearl Harbor. Sure, U.S. intelligence had a program codenamed Magic that was intercepting and decrypting some of Japan's secret diplomatic messages, but the information was fragmented, chaotic, and incomplete. While the codebreakers could read diplomatic traffic, Japan's military codes were a much tougher nut to crack and were changed frequently. The decoded messages did show that Japan was gearing up for a major military operation in early December. FDR himself, after reading one of the final intercepts, reportedly remarked, "This means war." But the intelligence all pointed toward an attack in Southeast Asia against British or Dutch territories. Pearl Harbor, nearly 4,000 miles from Japan, was considered an extremely unlikely target by U.S. military leaders. The failure wasn't a conspiracy, it was a catastrophic intelligence error, rooted in underestimating Japan's military audacity and getting lost in the noise of countless signals. What about the claim that FDR provoked Japan into attacking? It's true that the U.S. imposed a crippling oil embargo on Japan in response to its invasion of French Indochina. This action certainly pressured Japan, which imported about 80% of its oil from the United States. However, the goal was not to start a war in the Pacific. Roosevelt's main worry was Hitler and the war in Europe. Starting a two-front war was the last thing he wanted, as it would divert critical resources away from the Atlantic. Historical records show FDR was trying to delay a conflict with Japan, not start one. And the aircraft carriers? Their absence from Pearl Harbor was pure chance. The USS Enterprise and USS Lexington were out on missions delivering planes to Wake and Midway Islands, while the USS Saratoga was undergoing repairs on the West Coast. To suggest this was part of a plot, you'd have to believe Roosevelt would willingly sacrifice the bulk of the Pacific Fleet, including 8 battleships and thousands of lives, just to save 3 ships. It's a scenario that defies logic. Separating fact from fiction is essential to understanding our past. If you believe in uncovering the truth behind the history we think we know, take a moment to subscribe and click the bell icon. We release new videos every week that explore the real stories behind the world's biggest events.
So, if the evidence is so clear, why does this conspiracy theory refuse to die? Part of it is the sheer shock and trauma of the event. To the American public, Pearl Harbor was seen as an impregnable fortress. The idea that it could be so completely devastated was incomprehensible to many, making a conspiracy seem like a more plausible explanation than a massive intelligence blunder.
The theory also feeds into a deep-seated distrust of government and the idea that history is controlled by secret plots. It provides a simple, dramatic answer to a complex and tragic event. But the truth, supported by decades of research, is that Pearl Harbor was a story of miscalculation, underestimation, and systemic failure, not deliberate betrayal. The notion that Franklin D. Roosevelt knowingly sacrificed American lives at Pearl Harbor remains the highest-ranking lie of World War II. It's a claim unsupported by evidence, but fueled by suspicion. The reality is that the United States was caught off guard by a brilliantly executed and devastatingly surprising military strike. The tragedy of Pearl Harbor lies not in a presidential conspiracy, but in the intelligence failures that left a nation vulnerable and ultimately changed the world forever.